During the Tudor period, executions were incredibly common across the country. It's said that during the reign of King Henry VIII, that over 70,000 people were sentenced to death and executed for crimes varying in their degree of severity. There were many different methods of execution used, such as beheading on Tower Hill, or hanging, drawing and quartering, which mostly took place at Tyburn. However, some of the most sadistic and twisted executions took place at Smithfield, where many people were burned alive in barbaric fashion. Today we look at Smithfield, the brutal site of burnings alive, and remember to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Today Smithfield is overshadowed by some of its neighbouring areas such as the city, but during the medieval period it was incredibly important. It was full of life, with jousting tournaments held here, summer fairs, and the huge market which is still seen today. This was an incredibly important part of Smithfield's life. However, there was a darker element to the hustling and bustling area. It was here where many people were executed, and some of the most famous figures in medieval and Tudor history took their last breaths at Smithfield. The Elms at Smithfield was a place where many people were killed, some of whom allegedly still haunt the surrounding areas. The method of execution is most prominently associated with the area today is burning alive or being burned at the stake. However, it was here where many people were also hanged, drawn and quartered. Possibly the most famous to be killed here was Sir William Wallace, who was placed on trial by the English and was taken from his trial to the Tower of London, which was nearby. He was then stripped naked and dragged throughout the city of London by horse, before arriving at Smithfield. Here he was hanged, drawn and quartered, and in front of a huge crowd, the Scottish hero was executed. His head was then dipped in tar and taken to London Bridge and placed on a spike. Wallace's site of execution is still seen today and is marked by a nearby plaque. Smithfield also had a key role in the Peasants Revolt, as it was here where the young King Richard II met the 20,000 strong rebels, and it was here where Wat Tyler, the leader of the revolt, was killed, allegedly lunging towards the king. During the 1400s and the reign of Henry V, the gallows were removed from Smithfield and taken to Tyburn, where the famous Tyburn tree was built. What happened to the elm trees at Smithfield remains a mystery, but it was during the reign of the Tudor monarchs where Smithfield rose to prominence. It became a place synonymous with religious crimes and punishment, which resulted in a number of men and women being burned alive, being burned at the stake. The religious turmoil that occurred in Tudor England resulted in many people being sentenced to death for heresy or crimes against religion. Burnings did occur in the earlier centuries, in the 1400s, with Lollards being burned alive for following the teachings of John Wycliffe. Henry VIII himself was forced into splitting from the Catholic Church and Rome, as he wished to greatly divorce his first wife Catherine of Aragon. This made Henry the supreme head of the Church of England, and because of this, anyone who disagreed with Henry's religious changes were liable to be burned at the stake. One such lady was Anne Askew, a Protestant woman who was deemed too radical, and she had been preaching in London. Her arrest seemed not out of the ordinary. However, she was the only woman who was racked inside the Tower of London in recorded history. She was brutally tortured, with her limbs separating, and she was then brought to Smithfield to be burned. Anne was in such agony that she was strapped to the stake in a chair, and in a final act of mercy by the executioner, she had a small bag of gunpowder tied around her neck. As the fire was lit, you can imagine what happened next, with the crowd seeing the young lady burning alive, amongst others. During the reign of Queen Mary I, she sought to undo all of the religious changes her father Henry and her brother Edward made, and return England to Catholicism. With this, there are a number of different executions carried out, with this period being known as the Marian persecutions. Mary became known as Bloody Mary for the fact she burned over 200 Protestants at the stake, many of these occurring at Smithfield. Famously, John Rogers was burned in 1555, who helped to translate the Bible into English, creating the Matthew Bible. During the short time that Mary was on the throne, Smithfield saw a huge amount of action. More people continued to be burned, with many of these men and women being referred to as martyrs at the time. On one day, 6 men were burned at the stake together on the 24th of April 1556, being referred to as the Smithfield Martyrs, and they were all executed for religious crimes and for their Protestant beliefs. Executions continued there as the centuries rolled on, but the spectacles that occurred lived long in the memory. The point of executions at Smithfield was that many people would come to see what happened, and interestingly, sometimes executions were selected to take place on the same day as the market to ensure that a large amount of the public could see what was happening. Executions were performed publicly to have a strong deterrent effect, and at Smithfield this was achieved. This is why Mary I spurned Protestants, as it was key for her to put people off remaining Protestant and to encourage them to return to their Catholic beliefs. Smithfield today is a vibrant place. It's home to bars, nightclubs and restaurants, being home to many up-and-coming professionals who work in the city. However, when people travel in and out of the area, they are usually unaware of the bloody past that haunts the same streets that they're walking on. It was a place of brutality, where much blood was shed, and where some of the worst scenes in Tudor England occurred. Once again, thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.